Hi everyone, this is Tisch Aitken, and this is September 8th, 2020, and it is the night before Mars officially stations retrograde. And we've been feeling that energy, at least I have been feeling that energy really since the beginning of August when Mars was still technically direct. It had already entered its shadow at the end of July because by July 26th, Mars reached 15 degrees of Aries, which is where it's going to station direct on November 13th. But in the beginning of August, it started to form squares to all of the planets in Capricorn. So it squared Jupiter on August 4th, expanding this whole story of reconstruction, repair, and also amping up the Mars energy, which in Aries is very good at getting things done, but is very impatient. Mars is the warrior planet, and that aspect of Mars, which can be aggression and anger and hostility, is definitely amping up a lot, I feel, since the beginning of August, because then Mars clashed with Pluto, which is the higher octave of Mars, on August 13th, and that aggressive energy, that hostile energy being aggrandized. And then on August 24th, Mars squared Saturn in the sky, and they're still squaring one another. And Saturn rules this whole big lineup of Capricorn planets that we've been dealing with since the beginning of the year. And Mars is now officially stationing retrograde on September 9th at 6:22 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, and it stations direct on November 13th at 15 degrees of Aries. And this has been an incredibly cardinal year. And cardinal signs are the signs that launch seasons and they launch events. So Aries, Cancer, Libra, and Capricorn. When any planet gets to, when the sun gets to 0 degrees of any of those signs, it begins a season. But it also means that the planet or the sun is at the world axis. And 22 degrees of the cardinal signs is also at the world axis. And we've been dealing with a historical year of collapsing of old paradigms and restructuring and rebuilding. And Saturn, which rules Capricorn, met up with Pluto, the planet of death and rebirth, and the ruler of Scorpio. And the two met up at 22 degrees of the cardinal earth sign of Capricorn, which is at the world axis and impacts every one of us, people on the world stage, but every one of us on the individual level. And this has completely changed the world. And it's a death and a rebirth of the world, of our own lives individually and collectively. And we've had, Jupiter entered Capricorn on December 2nd. It will be there until December 20th, and that's been expanding the narrative. Jupiter is the grand benefic, but when it comes into contact with a planetary pattern, it expands it, whether it's good or bad. And in this case, it's been intensifying and exaggerating the story of our karmic comeuppance, of dealing with what we need to deal with to repair, to rebuild, to heal the earth, to heal our lives, our how we earn money, our values, many different things that are being brought up in this unforgettable year. And Mars, which is the warrior planet and represents passion and potency and power and ambition and drive, Mars entered the cardinal fire sign of Aries on June 27th, and it will remain there until January 6th of 2021. And Mars is generally in a sign for about 2 months, and it retrogrades once every 2 years. And the last time it retrograded in Aries was in the fall of 1988 and in 1941. So it doesn't happen that frequently in Aries. And again, this is the sign it likes to be in the most. And the last time it retrograded was 2 years ago, when it retrograded first in Aquarius, and then it retrograded back to the sign of Capricorn. And somebody pointed out on my channel, and this is true, that when Mars did station direct in August, it was August 27th of 2018, it stationed at 28 degrees of Capricorn. And now we have Mars stationing retrograde at 28 degrees of a fellow, well, of a cardinal sign. Aries is also a cardinal sign, the same modality. It's triggering where Mars did station direct in the end of August of 2018, but it's also triggering where Saturn recently has been, because Saturn's been transiting in Capricorn since December 20th of 2017. It briefly entered Aquarius from March 23rd until July 1st, and it will re-enter Aquarius on December 17th. But basically, we've all been contending with this Capricorn tail. Pluto's been in Capricorn on and off since 2008, and it will be there until the beginning of 2024. But having Saturn, Jupiter, and Pluto in this really immense, this overwhelming karmic story for all of us, the sign of karma, of accountability that rules corporations and governments and time and limitations, the year of lockdown. Now Mars, which is completely the opposite, does not rule time, is very impatient and wants to get things done. Mars is triggering where it did station direct in the end of the summer of 18. And I do think there's relevance to that because Saturn was in Capricorn at that time. But even more importantly, it's triggering where Saturn was from February 29th of this year until March 8th, when it was at 28 degrees of Capricorn. And then it re-entered Capricorn on July 1st when it exited its brief transit in Aquarius. And then from let's see, from July, really the second half of July, Saturn was back at 28 degrees of Capricorn. So Mars is triggering these time frames, the very end of February through the beginning of March, when a lot of people were getting ready to implement social distancing. And soon after, Saturn entered the sign of Aquarius officially on March 23rd. And Aquarius is how we network. It's the sign of friendships and social media and technology and groups and how we socialize, among other things. And we were implementing social distancing. Now Mars is triggering that time frame. It's also triggering the second half of July when we were still reconciling the stories from the three eclipses that happened over the summer. And Mars is now, the energy of it is being amplified and intensified. And Mars is cardinal fire, and it does not like being held back. And it's already been fighting with the Capricorn planets, and it will again. This time it will be retrograde and even more frustrated. So Mars is still squaring Saturn, which is the planet of restrictions and karmic lessons, and rules this whole stellium of planets in Capricorn that we've all been dealing with. And they will square each other again exactly on September 29th. And we'll be working with this energy until the beginning of October. So that in itself feels restrictive and feels challenging. And it feels like you're working your hardest to get something done and not getting any results. And I think the idea is that it's been an incredibly cardinal year, and cardinal signs make things happen. They catalyze things. And so for all of us, we've been working really hard to make things happen in a year of lockdown, in a year of historical Capricorn energy. We'll never have Saturn, Jupiter, and Pluto in Capricorn in our lifetime again at the same time. And that's okay with me, but there is healing of a lot of karma that is necessary. A lot of what's happening, not all the tragedies. I don't in any way mean that that's necessary, but some of the things that we're all reconfiguring in our lives that we're working with, maybe rethinking some of our values, things that we have mistreated, whether it's in our own lives or collectively. Some of that is necessary in terms of our collective and perhaps our individual karma. But it's been a very tough year. And, now I think it's really, somebody wrote something and I like the way they said it. I'm not going to be able to say it as eloquently, but it's about, being comfortable with the uncomfortable, being in the moment right now. And that's where this Mars retrograde, it's very easy for me to say that. I won't feel that way. I will not make myself, I will work with this to try to reach this conclusion because it's going to trigger us. We're going to feel much more angry and exhausted and frazzled. I know last week I was trying to do something and I just had, I don't know if you call it studio head or computer head. I could not process any information. I couldn't get things done. I just felt like my wheels were spinning. And that's kind of how all of us will feel in some way. And yet it's an excellent time for returning the things you want to get done, for doing shadow work and working on the anger that comes up. Each of us has some anger and or pain, I would say both, in this year. Some people tell me that they don't feel very impacted, and I think they probably are more. Either they're trying to be positive, and that's fine, or they are in more ways than they realize. They may not be individually or directly impacted, but when you see the world in a massive Pluto transit, which is death and rebirth, there's a lot of positive that can come from this and healing and transformation ultimately. But there is a lot of pain and loss. So I think, none of us is immune to that, uh, the loss and death of people and dreams and so many things. So we have to, realize that. And I think that while people are struggling to bring things together in this very challenging time, it's going to get difficult with Mars retrograde. It might even be more difficult than this year has been. But again, if you're in line with what you want to commit to, if you're working hard, if you're also using this time to return to things that can prepare you going forward, because ultimately we're exiting the epic of Capricorn, that's what I'm calling it now, and we're headed towards the real age of Aquarius. And to me, that's going to bring a big technological revolution. It's going to create a lot of new industries and businesses, but it's also going to help a lot of the businesses that are currently struggling to find new ways to generate income or to become more seamless in how they're doing business as they rebuild. And so, but we want to really prepare ourselves because Uranus rules Aquarius in modern astrology, and that is the higher octave of Mercury. And it's about ingenuity and chaos, but also thinking in very unusual and unique ways. And it's about working within communities and working in team capacities. So it has a lot of potential for all of us to grow in many ways. And it's about enlightenment and thinking about things, metaphysics or again, alternative ways of thinking. But we're still not done with this Capricorn tale, and Mars is going to fully remind us rather of everything we've been dealing with in 2020. And it's going to be tough at times. So you want to find your tools of how you can manage this, whether it's more meditation, whether it's connecting more with friends, whether it's getting into therapy, working out again. Maybe you've been working a lot this year and haven't had much time for yourself. Maybe you haven't had time to eat well or to exercise or to meditate, finding ways to recharge your body because Mars also rules your energy and your vitality. And it rules the ego too. So a lot of people might have bruised egos right now with everything that's happening because you may not have the confidence. When Mars is retrograde, it takes away your stamina. It also can take away your confidence. So finding ways to forearm yourself with that, whether it's, smudging and getting rid of the negativity. Maybe you're getting crystals that help your confidence and raise that. Journaling, ways to eliminate the negativity and to tap into the optimism, but also thinking of webinars and classes and workshops, maybe going back to school, things you can reconnect with or return to which prepare you for future expansion. Because once we get through this challenging time, and that's not going to be overnight, and for any of you that recall a major Pluto transit you went through in your life, that's not something that ends the minute that it's done. So Pluto will leave this point at the end of the year, and we will be done with this Saturn Pluto conjunction. But the aftermath could last for several years in some ways. But also knowing that as we get to later in the fall, Mars is going to square Pluto again in October. So Pluto stations direct on October 4th at 22 degrees of Capricorn. Again, right at the world axis, hitting every one of us, triggering and setting off that Saturn-Pluto conjunction from January 12th. And then Mars squares Pluto in the sky on October 9th. That's going to be very challenging, that time frame. And people will be much more aggravated and angry and combative and argumentative. So recognizing that that energy is going to be very pronounced. We feel the energy 5 days before and 5 days after. And Pluto is the planet of power and power struggles. It does rule joint resources, and it can deal with war. It's the higher octave of Mars. Channeling that energy to do healing work, to working out, doing things to really immerse yourself in healing methods during that time, and being aware of the fact that a lot of people are going to be very impacted by that energy. And later in the fall, Mars squares Pluto a full time on, let's see, I think it's gosh, I'm now thinking of Mars Eris. That Mars is also working with Eris, the goddess of discord, and they met up in the sky on August 17th. They meet up in the sky again at 24 degrees of Capricorn, close to the world axis, on October 4th, which is the day that Pluto does station direct. So again, Eris is the sister of Mars, so there's a lot of anger and aggression, but if we channel that energy in effective manners, we can get a lot done, but recognizing that we all will be challenged with this, and then Mars and Eris meet up again on December 22nd, and that's right after the winter solstice. So we have a lot of very, very strong Mars energy ahead. And again, you might feel devitalized right now. You might feel very angry. You might feel very disheartened. You might feel all of those things. And it's okay to feel that way. It's understandable. But know that it most likely will get more difficult before it gets easier. And we can all work on that. It's not going to be easy, but we don't really have a choice except for doing what we can do to control our emotions and our temper, and to use that passion in a way to channel positive energy and to come from a place of love in a very heartbreaking time. So I wish you all a lot of luck with this, because it's not going to be easy, but we can do it. All right. Thank you very much.